everyone, and welcome to another edition of Transformational Tuesdays. I'm Teresa Velardi, your host for this time of inspiration, education, motivation, and conversation focused around transformation. And I just want to say that I am excited about what we're going to talk about today. But I want to also let everybody know and remind you that, especially when we're talking today or about any of the other conversations that we've had, I want to remind you that there is a tab on Transformational Tuesdays called Contact Teresa. I would recommend and I would really welcome and encourage you to send me questions, comments, concerns, information about yourself if you'd like to be a guest on Transformational Tuesdays. If you need connections to any of the guests, reach out to me on Contact Teresa. We are up to date with the blog. Everybody who has been a guest on Transformational Tuesdays, there is a blog out there, including the beautiful Barbara Yeager, who's joining us today. I see her beautiful face there. And I just want to encourage you to really find your way around the new Transformational Tuesdays website. Doreen did a bunch of updates. But I really, more than anything else, I want to stay in touch with you. So either go on transformationaltuesdays.com/contact Teresa, or just click on the tab that says Contact Teresa, or send me an email. Let me know what you're liking or what you would like to see improved with Transformational Tuesdays, because one thing is for sure in this life: everything changes. Everything changes. So I want to know what's changing in your world. And we're kind of going to talk about that today with my my little thing there. I'm wondering if anybody had anything any comments, concerns about what I said out there today. What's your life shack experience? And basically what I want to know is, what is going on in your life that is causing you to dive deeper into transformation? When I put this out there, this is what I said. First, I said, I can hear you already, and I can. What's she talking about? The Shack is a movie. The Shack is a book. What is going on? What is this girl doing? But what I really got from this movie is a message of transformation. And so when I put this out here, I said, transformation is a multifaceted journey. Therefore, there are many ways to define it, which is the absolute truth. And today we're going to look at transformation from a spirit-filled perspective, because spirit really covers everything. And when I saw that movie, I personally left a bunch of junk, left a bunch of stuff that I'd been carrying around with me for way too long in the movie theater, on the tissues. I was a blubbering idiot at the movies. I couldn't stop myself. I had whatever it was that needed to come out of it, of myself, and be left there, was truly left there. And so it's put me into a place where I'm in deeper transformation in my life. Lots of things are changing. Lots of things are really coming to light. And so I just want to, me with my word nerd thing going on that I have. Everybody knows that I have this. And I make these little words out of words. I make little messages out of words. So today I want to invite you to embrace this. The Shack is really simple honesty that affects change, which is key in your life. So simple honesty that affects change is key. So that's what I got out of Shack. And the thing is that, I got chills. I love when that happens. So the thing that I want to start with is a question. Where in your life have you been resisting change or holding on to grief, guilt, sorrow, remorse, resentment, judgment? Where in your life is there something like that going on? And somebody might say, I've handled all that stuff. Well, let me tell you something. I thought I handled all that stuff too. But when it comes right down to it, somehow when things get stuck in your body, when emotions get stuck in your body, it comes out in ways that you don't anticipate. At least for me, it comes out in ways and that I don't anticipate. And I'm really looking at the fact that for many, many years, there have been things that I've held on to, you know, stuff from when I was a kid, stuff from when I was married to my ex-husband, who, you know, I always say it was a wrong choice, but maybe it wasn't a wrong choice, because every experience that we have leads us to a higher place within our evolution of who we are in this world. So, regardless of what your belief system is, whether you are Christian, whether you are somebody who looks at the universe as your higher power, God in any form as your higher power, whatever it is, I just want you to embrace the fact that there is something higher than us that has created this world, who somehow is guiding everything that's going on in this world. And whether or not you believe that is entirely up to you. But what I want to suggest to you is to embrace that, because I know myself that I've seen things happen in my world that I had nothing to do with me, yet were absolutely perfectly timed, perfectly constructed. Every single moment of the experience was like a gift from heaven, because when I come through those experiences, I'm changed. I'm affected by whatever it is that has happened in my life. And, you know, everybody worries about why can't I get rid of this guilt about blah, blah, blah? Why can't I get rid of this? Because you know what? The bottom line is we never really truly faced it. And that's when I saw The Shack, it was an opportunity for the main character to really face what was going on in his heart and what was going on in his mind. And I don't know if anybody's seen it, but this is the book, okay? I read it years ago, loved it. I listened to it on tape, loved it. I was traveling back and forth from Pennsylvania to New York, 3 hours each way, and I would just put these CDs in and listen to books on tape. And it's not something that I usually do, books on CD, not something that I usually do, but I did it with this one because I loved the story. And then when I saw the movie was coming out, I've already seen it twice, by the way, and I will see it again. But there's huge controversy about in the religious community. There's huge controversy about the depiction of higher power in this movie, depiction of God in this movie. But I want to invite you to, regardless of what your beliefs are, go to The Shack with an experience of learning and an experience of honesty and an experience of being welcoming to whatever it is that comes through that place. So The Shack doesn't have to be a place. It can be your journal. It can be a meditation. It can be quiet time with someone you trust, who you can talk out whatever it is that's going on in your world. But I want to invite you to bring some tools in with you. And as they depicted in the movie, you want to be open-minded to whatever is before you. You know, be open-minded to the fact, be open-minded to the possibility that whatever it is holding you down can be turned around to a place that will lift you up. You know, so there's always, you know, when Barbara was talking yesterday, last week on as my guest on Transformational Tuesday, and I've heard her say this many times in our conversations, there are two sides to everything. There's a downside, there's an upside, there's a dark side, there's a light side. There's always polar opposites. This world is full of polar opposites. And Philomena says, turn your scars into stars. Absolutely. I love that, Philomena. Thank you. We'll have to make that a Transformational Tuesdays moment. Turn your scars into stars. So yeah, Our Power, Robert Schuller. That's where that came from. Thank you. But the bottom line is that's exactly what you need to do. Turn what's bothering you into something that can propel you into a better place. Let me give you an example. I'm going to use the book as an example. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book, I'm going to just ask you to go ahead and give yourself that gift, because it's a transformational experience. This gentleman's journey, he had suffered great, great loss. He had suffered tremendous loss, and loss as a mother I would never want to have to face in my life. And as a father, he had to face this. And I'm not going to give you all the details and whatnot, but he finally decides to open his heart to the possibility of change. And something propels him to take a trip to the shack, which is the place where all of his grief lies, in this particular spot. It's a physical place where something happened, and all of his grief, all of his sorrow, all of his resentment, all of his remorse, all of his judgment, everything is in that place. So he went to that place, and he had let's call it a spiritual awakening. And whether or not you have had an experience like this, I'm going to invite you to welcome whatever it is that will come up for you as you search for your own spiritual awakening. Take everything that you have felt and bring it to this one place, or you've been holding on to, not everything you felt, but everything that you're holding on to. Bring it to this one place where it can be literally transformed. Because, even in the Bible, it says, be renewed by the transforming of your mind. And my mind, for circumstances in my life, I can drive myself crazy with the chatter and the BS that goes on inside my head about situations and circumstances and experiences that have happened in my life that have brought me to a place of feeling not so good, or feeling resentful, or feeling any of these emotions that I just listed: remorse, judgment, sorrow, guilt, resentment. Let's talk about resentment first of all, because there's a huge thing about resentment, and unforgiveness is the other thing. When we're holding on to resentment or unforgiveness, whoever we are holding that emotion against has no clue that we're holding that emotion against them. They may no longer be in our life anymore, or they may come back and forth in our lives or whatever. And we kind of like have this wall up around ourselves, and we experience all of these negative feelings because of the fact that we're holding on to resentment or unforgiveness. They don't care. They don't know. So who is it hurting? It's hurting me when I'm holding on to that emotion. I'm driving myself crazy. And I heard somebody say one time, resentment and unforgiveness is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. Duh. That's one of those V8 moments. I could have had a V8, slap yourself in the head. Excuse me. A little water. So, when this character gets in front of these feelings that he's holding on to, they are transformed with the wisdom and the help of someone who was there to have him face exactly what was going on. Now, this can be a friend of yours. This can be somebody that you completely trust as a friend. It can be a professional. It can be a pastor. It can be whoever else. It could be time alone in your journal. It could be through meditation. But I honestly feel like during this transformational process, this shack moment, if you will, I think that it's really helpful to have someone who you can trust and support you, be with you as you go through whatever it is, if it's the first time you're going through it. Now, what I left at the movie theater was stuff that I've been hanging on to, like, with ribbons, not ropes, you know what I mean? There are things that have still been in my life, and I've thought I worked through them, and for whatever reason, they still hung on to me, but not with as much power as they had before I originally got in front of somebody and really, talked about them. First, I wrote everything out. And I'm a writer. So my journal, my journal, I need to buy a new journal. My journal is almost full. It's like written in all different colorings. I think I have 3 pages left at the back. But I leave everything on the paper. And I want to encourage you to do that. And you've heard me say this before. Journaling is like a purging of the soul. I believe that when you put things down on paper, whatever is in your head and in your heart, that needs to come out of you, if you actually put the pen in your hand and the paper in front of you, there is something that happens on a physical level. So you've got the emotional thing going on, you've got the physical thing going on, you've got the mental and the spiritual actually all happening at the same time as you write out whatever it is that is on your mind in relation to those feelings. Now, that's not an experience that happened in this movie, but this is my way of that has worked for me over the years. And then once I get clarity on what the root of the problem is, now I can go ahead and speak about it with someone. Because a lot of times I don't get clarity until I write. I can be in my head all I want, and I don't necessarily get clarity until I actually get it out of myself and can see it on the paper and have that aha moment. And then I can take it to the next level of actually talking about it. And I may talk to myself. How many of you do that? I do that. I talk to myself out loud. It's like, you know, and I use every word in the book, and I don't censor myself when that happens. I'm not one that's really to use profanity. I'm not one that usually does that. But there are some people on this call today who can actually honestly say they've heard me drop a couple of F-bombs, and I do it because it's a release, and it's in that moment, and it's not conscious, it's unconscious. And the point of that is let it be stream of consciousness, because whatever is going on inside your mind, inside your heart, inside your soul, being held in your body needs to be released. And however it is that you release that is entirely up to you. So I want to go to this particular scene in this movie where the main character, whose name is Mac, and in this book, and I haven't read the book in years. I've just picked it up at the library last week, and I've been little by little getting through it. But now I am one like, oh, was it as good as the book? Was the movie as good as the book? The visual presentation that happened in this, whether it's exactly the same, I can't tell you, but the visual presentation that happened in this brings a whole new light to what the book is about. But in this one experience where he's facing wisdom, and it's really his own wisdom, but he's being coached spiritually, he has to go through all of these things: resentment, unforgiveness, grief, remorse, guilt that he couldn't do anything about the circumstance, judgment of himself, judgment of others. And it's like it really puts everything out on the table. I wouldn't want to be going through that particular moment, the way that this person did. But really, when I think about it, I go through this on a regular basis when I'm writing in my journal, when I'm having conversations with God, when I'm having conversations with trusted friends. I'm allowing myself the opportunity for simple honesty that affects change, which is the key to transformation. So the thing is, what do I want to say? So he faces wisdom. And I'm sure you've seen the trailers, and I'm sure you've seen some information about this. But this character faces God, if you will, in a form that most of us would not perceive to be God. And a lot of religions, a lot of pastoral teachers, and biblical teaching and religious teachings, God is 3 in 1. And so each of those aspects of God are represented by people in this movie. And they are people that the main character can embrace at that moment. And the concept of God, God the Father, if you will, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are all represented in there. And the picture he needs at any given time, picture of God at particular times, changes. Like God is one thing at one point, the Father, and another thing at another point. And it's there as a way to say that However you need God to show up in your life, God will show up in your life as that. So everybody has their own perception of who and what God is. And, God can be a mother figure, God can be a father figure, God could put somebody in your life who represents those people. It's just really interesting the way that the movie portrayed it. This is not necessarily my belief system, but it's interesting the way that the movie portrayed it. And sometimes for myself, I need that nurturing kind of relationship with what I believe God to be. And sometimes I need that whip me into shape, would ya? kind of thing, because I'm like having issues myself. So, but this whole point of this whole thing is to open your mind and open your heart to the possibility of going deeper into who you were created to be. I know who I am, basically know who I am, and I'm heading for a landmark birthday soon, and I'm not telling you how old, but the bottom line is I'm having a landmark birthday pretty soon. And as I look at my life, can I really say who I am? Not what I am, not what I do, not who I relate to, but who am I at soul level? That's a conversation you guys want to have with Barbara. She's the core power stuff. Who am I at soul level? And I don't know if we can ever really say exactly who we are, but you know what? I have a better vision, a better view of who I am at soul level, at core level, to the core of my being, who I am and what my purpose is. And one of those things is to bring a message of transformation and build a community of people who are having the same experience, not the same experience necessarily, but are on the same journey, with me, of transformation. So I don't really have a heck of a lot more to say about this, but what I really want this rest of this time to be, because I don't want to give away the details of the movie, but I will encourage you to go ahead and see it or read the book. Make this conversation something that is a priority for you, because it will bring clarity to lots of areas of your life that may not have seen the light of day in any place, seen the light of day. Maybe they're stuck in the back of your mind. Maybe they're like running rackets, if you will. They used to say that in Landmark, run rackets inside your head. I took Landmark training for a long time ago, but where is it that you're making yourself guilty for something that you've been holding on to? And where does it show up in your body? And I'm going to say this very candidly. I have held so much junk in my body and have this protective layer of physical being on me that just, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to have this anymore, because I don't know totally what the reason for it is, but I just know that that experience that I watched in the movie, where wisdom really makes this character get honest to the core about the feelings, the emotions, the circumstances, the situations, about this person at soul level, there was a lot to let go. So my hope, my prayer, my soul song, if you will, I don't know where that came from, is that this will shift and this will change. So I want to I want anybody who has something to say, please open, press star 9 on your phone. Oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat room. I'll check this out here. Press star 9 on your phone. If you are on the phone, raise your hand or push that little button that says raise hand on the audio video if you are live with video. I'd love to hear from you. First of all, have you seen the movie? Has anybody seen the movie? Raise your hand if you've seen the movie. Yeah? Yeah. No. Or read the book. Who's read the book? No? Okay. I highly recommend this. From a transformational standpoint, I highly recommend this. Barbara, you want to say something? Let me open your line. Hang on a second here. Okay, go ahead.
I'll get the conversation started.
Okay, yay.
I did see the movie. In fact, you had said something to me, and then I went ahead and saw the movie. And it reminded me of something very important, is that as we go through life, we have our playbook. I always talk about our life playbook with all these pages in it. And over the course of time, we make pages up, whether we're using it to help us feel better about something, or we create all these rules and we put them in those pages and we live by it. And the thing about transformation is that people are afraid of it. They're afraid of what they're going to see if they face something. And it's a judgment. Because what happens if you really see it and it isn't as scary as you think? And we create all these walls. Every time something happens, you think you have to have a story about it. So the story is the walls. And of course, then that goes down on your pages of your playbook. And so you think, oh, I don't want to look in there. That's crazy in there, or whatever. And I'll relate something from my life and just, talk about a moment of transformation. Probably 20 years ago, I first of all, my mother was not a very, I shouldn't say, my mother had drug and alcohol problem. And when you were growing up and having children in the 50s, I have a feeling that a lot of post-traumatic or, postpartum syndrome was there or whatever, but she ended up losing her life to drugs and alcohol.
Wow.
And I would come home from school and find her drunk on the floor. And, she was seriously someone who was in great pain. And I had a lot of resentment as a kid, thinking, here's a person who didn't act and behave as a mother, made me be hurt. I was the mother. My older sister was gone. My younger sister was clinging to me. And so that, of course, created all these pages in my playbook of attitudes and fears and all these things. So one day I'm talking to one of my friends and talking about the power of speaking to somebody, but I had a long time, I had no connection with her. She actually left when I was about 8, and I never saw her again. My family created an opportunity for me to go live with my grandmother, and my uncle was a judge, and so my mother was dealt with because obviously they didn't appreciate her lifestyle or the people that she associated with, and it wasn't conducive to having children, being around children. So I never saw her again. And I found out that she died when I was, I think, a junior in high school. And it was so funny because I didn't have any connection to her. It was like I heard somebody that had a distant had died. But I had this whole thing in my mind about what a terrible mother she was. So I was having a conversation with a friend one time and telling him how angry I was at her and all of these things that I had created in my playbook. And he looked at me and he said, "Did you ever walk a day in her shoes?" And that just took me back, and I thought to myself, wow, look at all these things that I think I know when I really don't know. And that's very true for a lot of people. We think we know, but we do not know. And so I had to take a step back and look at my mother's life through her eyes. And at one time I thought, wow, you know something? How could it be to have no contact with your children? Because they are your children and you do love them. And she was never able to see us. And so those are some of the things that I had to go, and I went back in and looked at those walls and I pushed them all down and created a greater tolerance to people who go through things, who struggle, who need because you don't walk a day in another person's shoes. And until you do, how can you judge? How can you know? And that's one of the things that I saw in the movie, is that he had a lot of judgments and he had a lot of attitudes about how he thought it went. And really that's what it was all about, was to take those judgments and create an opportunity for him to walk in the shoes of somebody who had obviously some problems in life. And so that's really what it's about. It's about transformation, is about not being afraid to look at the walls you created, to get those pages out of your playbook, to really take a look, because you may not know. And the thing about it is once you figure it out, it isn't so difficult. There's nothing really that's so earth-shaking that's going to take you down at its roots. It doesn't happen.
Right.
And so that's, It's really about just being honest and real with yourself. And God forbid, stop judging the things that you think you know.
Exactly.
When I was a lawyer, one of the things I always said is, please don't come to me with judgment and bias in your heart. We will never get to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really true, because judgment and bias are a mask to truth. So.
Yeah. I'm writing that one down. It's true. Mask to the truth. Judgment and bias are a mask to the truth. And you know what you said was really profound about look through someone else's eyes. You know, in this particular movie, it was look at the situation through God's eyes. Where he was challenged to look at the situation through God's eyes, with a heart completely full of love. Because I don't care what religion, what doctrine, what belief system you have, but the essence of God in any religious or any spiritual conversation is love. So look at the circumstance, situation, the person through the eyes of love. Can you stay in that place of resentment? Can you stay in that place of resistance, if you will, to who you actually are? Which is, if we are all created in his image, we all have the same DNA. We are at soul level, one thing, love. So Barbara, thank you for sharing the intimacy of your life with your mom. And you know, how many of us have people in our lives who are similar? How many of us actually grew up in a household that, you know, something outside of your parents was their driving factor for you know, I grew up, I didn't grow up in that kind of household. My father was not alcoholic, nor was my mother, but they had their stuff, and the alcohol is just a symptom of what goes on. You know, it may be food, it may be shopping, it may be gambling, it may be whatever. Something that takes you away from yourself is you know, part of is the crutch, or the way that you get out of who you are. And those people don't have any, you know, those people, because we all have something. We've used that as a way of escaping the truth of who we are. And thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. Again, it's the fear and fear conversation, and fear versus love. So where do you want to live? You know, where do you want to live? I go back to Marianne Williamson. I got this right here every day. I'm like, how many times? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear that we are powerful beyond measure. And, you know, some of that power beyond measure needs to be called up in order to face these circumstances and situations that keep us bound to ourselves, bound to our stories, bound to our resistance, bound to our past, bound to not wanting to step forward into the future and release the things that are going on. I mean, all of this. And I've got all kinds of stuff going on here. Barbara, your story touched someone personally, so thank you for that. Let's see here. Who's Philomena? If we knew better, then we would do better, is the mantra and response I use to cope with other people's reactions. It sounds better in Italian. I'm not going to do the Italian. The way I overcame the death of my brother 2 years ago was the day that he decided to be last on earth, and that's the way that she copes with that. So when we give ourselves permission, we can live the life that's waiting for us. And I love this. She sent this to me in an email. So Philomena, I want to say thank you to you. She sent this to me in an email. She says that we can live the life waiting for us when we shift from the to-do list to the to-be list, which is totally more significant. So, and our natural protection is the fight-flight reaction. So, you know, how many of you can relate to this? I mean, just really, I'm like, I wanted to have this conversation because this movie touched a place in my heart that I don't know that I've gone there before. And it really was definitely life-changing for me. And when I saw the transformation that happened to the character, I was like, I got to bring this to the table on Transformational Tuesdays. The name of the movie is The Shack, and it's in theaters now. It will be in my video library one day as soon as it comes out. I've seen it twice, and I went with a bunch of girls from my church, and then I went with one of my dear friends, and we just loved it. I just loved it, and everybody who saw the movie got something transformational from it, and that's the reason why I thought I'd bring this to the table today. So anyone else have anything to say? Let's see who else is in the chat box here. Yeah, this is true, Lynn. Absolutely. She says the healing arts and transformation service centers are imperative to shift the old coping mechanisms such as drugs, gun, alcohol, abusive addictions, to deal with old ego fear-based programs. It's all programs. It's all programming. It's all patterns of behavior. It's things, well, let's see, if this happened, my usual thing is to do this. I'll tell you, anger is my thing. Like, I don't do anger very well. I'm learning. I've been flipping the bird every once in a while lately. I'm like dropping the F-bomb simply because I need to find, my soul needs to find a way to deal with anger besides running to bag of chips that crunch. For me, I relate, like, if I know that I'm craving something, there's an emotion that's attached to whatever it is that I'm craving. So here, I'm getting really open here, girls. I know that when I'm angry, I like to hear things crunch. So chips are a good thing for me. When I'm angry, I eat chips, but they don't serve me. Or carrots or celery, I can do that now. But the thing is that the food does not serve the healing of the emotion that's going on. If I'm feeling like, what's the word that I want to use? Like I need a hug, or I miss my parents, or what else? I want to be loved in some way. I like things like pudding. And things that are comfort foods from home, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, things like that, stuff that is like comfort food, whatever you call comfort food. So I have learned to discern, okay, I wish I had a bag. I wish I could really go for some chips. All right, so what's really going on? Now let's take out my journal. Let's call somebody and talk about whatever the heck is happening, or use some things other than the darn chips. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And as I think about it, and as I'm looking for transformation on a deeper level, all these light bulbs are going off in my head, like, rather than dealing with the emotion. How many of you, rather than dealing with emotion, would rather go spend money, eat something, drink wine, whatever the case may be? How many of you can relate to this? I mean, I know I'm not alone. And that's why this is so powerful. And really, this movie really calls you to task on your emotional shit. Is basically what it is, like, calls you to task on what's going on with you emotionally. So really, if anyone has anything to say, I'd love to hear from you. Karen Mayfield, you said when the ego has been rasped into a positive service, the separation will fall away, and the ego will assist us in creating our masterful life on purpose. That's awesome. Do you want to expand on that, Karen? Do you want me to, can I open your line? Can I open your line? Yeah, okay. Go ahead. Oh, wait. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry about my hairdo, y'all. We're having baby horses here. So
That's right. Your hairdo.
I've been out.
My gray. Barbara's beautiful new too. We all got the hair thing going on today. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, look at myself. Anyway,
you're birthing baby horses. She's got 6 mares that are about to give birth to foals right now.
Yeah.
Did any of them arrived?
Yes, we had Adela got here last night. Asia's baby got here last night. So Ken and I stayed out with her until we saw him get up. So her name is Adela, and she is a beautiful little black and white paint coat. So she's pretty. A very rare color because her mother is a Dutch warm blood who has the gray gene, which is actually a black gene. And the paint color tripped out on this one, so we're lucky there. We're lucky we got her with some color. It doesn't happen a lot.
Awesome.
So anyway, but we're happy about her. But anyway, my thing is I don't, I think Barbara touched on this a little bit last week, but we have this external dialogue that kind of seeps into our mind and works on changing our internal dialogue. And, for example, the ego speaks from the inside, and the ego, in my opinion, is what I call our earth-guided orientation. The ego is easily attracted to all of the beauty of the world, and we were sent here for a purpose. We weren't sent here just to live our life. We were sent here with a purpose. We have something to do, and, the best thing to do is for us to find that as soon as we can, early enough in our life, that we make a huge impact, and for a longer period of time, even if what you do is not long lasting. But the ego has a sense of saying, when you get some, let's just say you get paid on Friday, and you got bills to pay, but it wasn't enough money to pay the bills. So in other words, you take your check and you just spend it. Well, there's this deal and there's this thing going on in your mind that says, now, that's not the thing to do. But the ego says, oh, come on, it's not even enough money to pay the bills anyway, so go have a good time. Well, that is an ego that's running amok. And so you have to rasp that ego. There is no way to transcend it. You cannot ever separate from it. It is a part of who you are and who you are always going to be. And so you have to take the ego itself and transcend it into a positive service. Then you have a unified partner that will stand side by side with you with a clear message to help you get it together and make it happen, and not have to hear all this internal chitter chatter that goes on trying to talk you out of your greatness and into your mediocrity. So having said all that, that's what that means.
Well, that was a mouthful. I can't tell you how much was contained within there. And as you were saying that, transcend the ego into positive service, I think about my friends. One of my good friends in high school and his wife lost their son a year ago, April 22nd, to heroin. He was addicted to another drug, but for whatever reason, decided he was going to try heroin, and he died. First time out, he died. And so they have been, I've talked to them, but I've seen them at least once since this happened. And now they are taking that grief and remorse and whatever they're feeling themselves, which is a lot, when you say ego transcend into positive service, I want to let you know that they decided that they were going to put together a walk for hope for addiction and on Long Island and beachside roads. And on April 22nd, which is the anniversary of their son's death, they are going to be around hundreds of people who are going to be walking to bring light to the huge problem of heroin addiction and drug addiction in this country. So they have transcended their own emotions, their own ego, if you will, and earth-guided orientation. I like that. into a positive service to help. They say if only one person is helped, you've done your job. They feel like they've done their job. And that's how I feel with Transformational Tuesdays. If one person, and I know there are many of you who come to the call every week, and there are many of you who listen to the replays or watch the replays, and if this transforms your life, if something I've said, something one of the guests have said, something one of the speakers has said, or one of the attendees have said, has helped you to move to a different space in your life, have transformed you, then all of the time and all of the effort and all of the background stuff that goes on is worth it if one person's life is improved. And that person may be me. I don't know. But it's one person. I get a lot more out of it. I get so much out of this. Like even hearing myself say some of this stuff and really come almost to the brink of tears is, on some of it is really transformative for me. As well as for some of you who are telling me so in the chat box over here. So, thank you, Karen. Thank you. Barbara, you're raising your hand. I'm going to unmute you again. Go ahead.
Getting back to the movie and what Karen said about the ego, the character in the movie had tremendous ego over hate and anger. And his ego was always saying, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel resentment. It's okay to feel anger. It's okay to hate everyone. And he lived inside that castle, that ego-built castle, for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And then it was the transformation. It was almost like, well, let me show you the truth. That's really what the transformation was, is like, look, just could you look at it like this and stop listening to the rules that the ego was making up, because he was a miserable person until he transformed. And in the end, when he was, talking to the people in his life who he was holding himself back from, it was really an interesting focus, because once he realized that there was really nothing scary about looking at these things, he gained momentum. He just stepped up in ways that created emotion. You couldn't possibly have escaped the emotion. Yeah. And it's really what it is that ego really keeps us in those little castles of our own making, because you think it's safer. You don't want to bridge out. You don't want to look, and there's lots of stories, just like Karen was talking about. The ego will tell you a story to get you to stay safe. Yeah. And that's the ego's job, is to keep you safe. Yeah. And that's something in this particular case, this is the reason why we don't move ahead a lot, is because those stories and our own rhetoric, we have our own rhetoric in our head that we don't even stop and think about whether it's BS or not. Yeah. And then ego will say, oh, don't look at that. It's okay. You're good. Just go ahead. But how disconnected do we feel then from our own truth, mm-hmm. from loving the people that we want to love, mm-hmm. because we just don't take the time and just look at the page. Yeah. Look at the story you wrote. Yeah. And does it make sense? Because what you made up when you were 17 obviously doesn't necessarily work today, and it maybe shouldn't work today, but we don't want to look at those pages. Yeah. And that's where the transformation, it's the willingness to look at our life's rules. Right. That's where the transformation begins. And you'd be surprised, because a lot of those rules, you kind of like laugh and think, oh God, that's stupid. Why do I even think that? Yeah. Why do I overeat? I mean, I lived that same world as you until I figured out that it doesn't serve me anymore. Yeah, and that's the thing. It doesn't serve me anymore. It hasn't served me for a long time, but, somehow, some way. You made a rule up about it. Yeah, yeah. And, oh, it's genetic. Oh, it's blah, blah. It's blah, 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 blah. And not taking responsibility, right? And here's the other thing, too. The big message in this is take responsibility for who you are. Right. Ego is like a fictional writer. He creates a fiction of your life. Mm-hmm. And that's ego does. So you're right. You got to look at that, because it, we don't need him or her or whatever your vision of ego is to derail us in in just coming to the edge of transformation.
Exactly.
Really what it's about. So
Karen says that the ego dwells in the wall of our emotional warehouse.
yeah, because that's the most powerful warehouse.
Yeah.
What you don't know, and your fears and your worries, and ego's great at driving that stuff.
Yeah.
Shh, don't do that. They're not going to like you if you say that.
Exactly.
If I had to listen to that all day, I wouldn't be living my life purpose, so.
That's the thing. Are you letting any of this stuff, any of what we talked about today, are you letting any of these emotions, these negative emotions, rule you and keep you from, living your purpose?
Time and time again, I see it with my clients. When they see who they really are, then what happens is they have all these stories about who they're not. And it's getting rid of that stuff that enhances their ability to be truly who they are. That's where the point of transformation has to take place.
Right, exactly. Philomena says wisdom comes with spiritual maturity, and I believe that's true. So I said this was going to be a spirit-filled conversation, and I believe it has to this point. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to really, if you don't have a spiritual practice, regardless of what your belief system is, as far as religion, spirituality, whatever, if you have not put a spiritual practice into place, I am going to call you on the carpet right now and say, do it, because it's through that spiritual connection that we are able to actually make these shifts that will help us to, get out of the shack, because it doesn't only happen in the shack. This stuff doesn't only happen in the shack. You've got to take it from the experience that you have and bring it into your day-to-day life. Take what you learn and install it in your day-to-day software. It's like I started out by saying shack is simple honesty that affects change is key. Simple honesty that affects change is key. So, I encourage you to take whatever you learn from this conversation. If you don't have a spiritual practice and you'd like to have one, or you don't know where you are and you want to have a conversation, send me a note and contact Teresa. I can, I've been the gamut. I have been the gamut of every kind of spiritual practice that you can think of. I choose one, but I have been the gamut, and I am open to any and all conversations that you want to bring to the table. So Lynn says, that's a good question. When will we teach universal laws and the evolving relationships and soul purpose development and networking jobs for peace and unity consciousness? Those who suffer with mental diseases do not heal with drugs, and they are lost souls who got lost and do not fit into the old limited ego mind programs. I believe that. And, when I was a kid, I used to go to, when I was in high school, we had a program that we would go to the state hospital, which was for the mentally ill. And we would go there and spend time with them, and spend like an hour or whatever, spend time with them, bring them something like, I don't know, I can't remember going back, but for some reason, coloring books is coming to my mind. And if you don't, how many of you color? I color. How many color? If you're not coloring, how many of you color? I invite you to just get quiet with something in front of you and color it. We used to do, I have a bag full of coloring books. I love mandalas. They speak to the scientific, mathematical mind that I have, that I need for my pottery and whatnot. I don't know what's in there. I don't know how it works or whatnot. But when I'm coloring mandalas, I'm in heaven. And now they have this great program that you can get on your phone. It's called Recolor. So I'm going to show you something here that I'm working on. And it's just like, this is just, you can, the beauty of this thing is you can color it, you can save it, and you can recolor, you do it again in different colors. It's just tapping the colors. You don't have to color. And you can, if you see something that you don't like, you can change it. It's simple. But you know what? This, what I call seemingly mindless, Activity may be mindless, but it is soulful. It brings you to who you are. Barbara too, look at her. She's got that going on. Yes, she's got recolor. We talked about that. Sudoku Sanity sessions. I love it, Philomena. Something, crossword puzzles, do words with friends, do something that takes you out of the head that keeps you bound. Do something. So I used to go to, like I started to say, to the state university, the state hospital. State university. It might as well be a state university because there's learning going on in every situation. There's learning happening everywhere. But the bottom line is that the thing is like, we'd come out of there and some people would be judgmental. Some people would be like, oh, I'm glad that's not me. And other people like myself is, what can I learn from this experience? I'm always looking at, what can I learn from this experience? When I get myself out of my head, I start thinking about, what could I learn from this experience? And how can I take this person's life experience into mine and make my life better? So it's like everything that is before you, whether it be somebody who is seemingly, I'm going to say seemingly insane, because who knows? They might know everything and we know nothing. So someone who's seemingly insane, somebody who is like completely lost in drug or alcohol addiction. None of us are different. We are all made of the same material. We are all energy. We all come from the same source. We are all here for a purpose. And I want to invite you to take a closer look at who you are. Have one of those shack experiences where you really look to the soul of your being and figure out what it is that you are here to do. If you haven't figured that out, if you need a little help, call Barbara. She'll help you. If you are, if you are struggling with something, if you don't have a spiritual practice, if you want a spiritual practice, text me. Send me a message through the contact Teresa. Send me an email, Teresa@teresavelardi.com. You can text me at 570-230-4185 if you decide you want to do that. Barbara says, this is why we have spirit guides. They are here to help guide us in spirit. You're not going through life alone. We are spiritual beings. So learning to listen to spirit is our spiritual journey and duty. Thumbs up, Barbara. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And if you haven't figured that out yet, I encourage you to embrace that statement. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Everything that is before us is for learning and spiritual growth. And you don't get to enlightenment until when you are enlightened, and whatever the reason, I'll go back to this a second here. I have learned through readings, whether it's people's experiences, having had near-death experiences, whether it's what I believe in my own spiritual beliefs, whether it's what I've heard others people talk about. I am a sponge for knowledge in this area and in many others as well. But when you have finished your job here on earth, whatever it is, you're taken back. You're taken home. You leave. Wherever you go, wherever you believe you go, because your purpose is done. It breaks my heart when people have to suffer knowing that someone that they love is now gone to eternity, if you will, after their job is completed. I have friends who have become atheists and have no spiritual belief because of the fact that they cannot see the purpose for people dying anything other than age 100 in their bed, quiet at night. And they're stuck in this box of what they believe the length of a life should be, and that we shouldn't all have, different times when we are called back to where it is we come from. People are so afraid to read Akashic records because they are afraid I'm going to tell them something scary or bad. This is so far from the truth. What an Akashic reading does is inform them of their spiritual nature, the divinity of their soul. People need to stop being afraid of spirit. I'm totally agreeing with Barbara. If you haven't had your records read and you want to, reach out to Barbara Yeager. Send me a note. I'll send her the information. But the bottom line is, don't be afraid of who you are spiritually. Don't be afraid, because it is the essence of who you actually are and what you're actually here for. So I am going to invite each one of you to have a deeper conversation with yourself, with me, maybe with Barbara. Things like this. This conversation is invaluable. It's something that I believe each and every one of us need to have, soul to soul, face to face. Bye, Philomena. Soul to soul, face to face, heart to heart. Really, I can't express it enough. And if you can't hear the conviction in my voice, I really encourage you to know that this is part of who I am and part of my purpose. So I invite each and every one of you to have a deeper conversation with who you are. See the movie. It will encourage you to, it will help you along the way and encourage you. And maybe like me, you will leave some of the junk that's been clouding your spirit in the movie theater. So hope so. Anyway, I want to ask you all a question. We're at the top of the hour. We're actually a minute beyond, but I want to let you know that I have been contemplating the possibility of having a transformational book club. Anyone interested? Raise your hand. Okay. So I'm going to get that information together for you. And what I'm thinking this is going to look like is that we read a book a month or every other month or whatever time frame I decide to set, because I do have a busy schedule. We'll come up with a book title. I'll come up with a book title, and I will let everybody know what it is. You get the book, and you have a certain period of time to read it, and we'll come together for a conversation about what we've read and take out of there anything that has transformed us, anything that has made us think about something else and some other possibilities in our lives, or something like that. It's been on my heart lately to do something like this. So if you guys are open for it, I'll get busy. Yes? Okay. All right. And once again, thank you for coming to Transformational Tuesdays for our Shack experience conversation. Remember, the Shack is really simple honesty that affects change, which is key. So I thank you again for coming to Transformational Tuesdays. Thank you all. Shack it to us, Karen says. Yeah, on that note, I'm going to say enjoy traveling this week on what I like to call the transformational trails of life. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.